Hello and welcome to episode number 3 of Best Available Podcast. This is Ryan Wallace, joined once again by the co-founder of Best Available Player and the co-host of this podcast, Matt DeLuca. Went a little subdued for that intro this time. The first 2 episodes we kind of got a little wild, so we wanted to rein it back in this time because you got to keep people on their toes. But we are excited for episode number 3. We have a lot to talk about, and we are actually recording this at a respectable time. It is not midnight. It is 10:01 p.m. We're very happy about that. But, Matt, August is almost over. We are almost through 8 months of 2020, which seems very weird to say. How are you doing right now?
Thank God, Ryan. We only got 4 more months of this horrible year. I'm good. I got a laptop stand, so the view's a little different. You can see my Lego Death Star in the background there. Very proud to show that off to the world. Big weekend for me, Ryan. I'm officially an AirPods guy now. I have officially caved in, and I purchased some AirPods.
Congratulations.
I don't know how I feel about it yet. Thank you. It was a very expensive purchase, but I used to judge people who wore AirPods.
Yes, you did.
And then I saw the convenience. I called them a certain word. It's a kids program that we have here, so I won't say it. But
not tonight. You want to go out? You want to go all out? Not tonight.
There were a B word pods. That's what I called it. So now I guess I'm one of those. So there we go. I'm proud of myself. I've caved in to peer pressure and societal pressure, and I'm not using them tonight though. I have to stay on brand because one of our friends I think made fun of the fact that I'm the wired guy, so I'm just sticking with that. How are you, Brian?
I am okay. I have been better, but I am okay. For those of you that are wondering, I am in the middle of a fantasy football draft, and we're in the final 2 rounds, so pretty soon I'll be able to take my attention away from this. Not to brag, I do think I have the best team, but
that's what everyone says though at the beginning of the draft.
The difference is that's true when I say it, but regardless, I just got to pick a defense and a kicker, and then we're all good. I have the Flyers game on. They are about to start the 3rd period. They are down 2-1 in the series, and they are tied 1-1 in this game number 4. So you will get to see my reactions live because the game will be over before we finish this podcast. So we'll see. Hopefully for me,
it goes into like 5 overtimes.
Let's knock on wood that we don't go through that because I don't have the patience to sit through that. But you'll get to see my reactions live. Hopefully the Flyers win. If they don't, then we'll go from there. But
well, who are they playing, Ryan? We're going to talk about them in a little bit, but who are they playing?
Well,
it's the Glendon-Negros Islanders.
Matt, they're playing Glendon-Negros' New York Islanders. I feel very good for him because for years he's had to watch this team slog through, not really get much going. But it's, Matt, there's some people that are saying that this is a team of destiny. That's not me saying it, but some people would say that this is a team of destiny. I guess we'll see tonight if they can go up 3-1 in this series against the 1 seed, the Philadelphia Flyers. We have an entire segment that will be devoted to the hockey playoffs. We have a full show tonight. We'll try not to make it go too long. I think last week was close to an hour and 45 minutes. So we're going to try to, take it back just a little bit and try to make it more manageable. And I am on the clock, so give me a second here. I need to make a pick here. I need to pick a kicker, Matt.
Harrison Butker.
Well, he is already gone.
He was my kicker
most
last
of the good
year.
kickers are gone. I might pick Greg Zuerlein. I think that might be a good thing to do. I can always.
Is he still on the Rams?
He's on the Cowboys now.
Well, he's still kicking indoors. As long as he's kicking indoors,
I think
it'd be a safe bet.
Okay, I can always change my kicker, so we're gonna go with him. And then we just need a defense. I usually stream defenses. For those that don't know, most of the time when I play fantasy football, I like to stream my defenses. But I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, we have a lot to talk about. As I said, we got hockey playoffs. We got some baseball. We got soccer for the first time. NASCAR for the first time. Golf for the first time. So a lot of things we're going to talk about for the first time here in episode number 3. And then we have the returning favorites that have gotten a lot of praise and accolades. You can see articles written about them at a lot of outlets like BuzzFeed and NME. These are kind of getting really far out there. Start Bench Cut, that's a really big favorite. A lot of people seem to really love that. And Pops My Tarts got a lot of reaction a week ago, so we'll see if we can top that.
Well, yeah, because you called people out
Listen,
last
I
week.
I
I
didn't
think that's
call people
why.
out. I just gave my personal thoughts on whatever the hell that thing was that we had on the screen last week. So
Yeah, we started some podcast beef with another podcast on the network.
listen, some people would say that I might have done that. I don't think I did. I just gave my opinion. But we have Pops My Tarts back this week. Very popular segment. We'll see if we can get 2 for 2 with really good interaction. But we're going to start with something that I think is very important to talk about. And Matt, I know you would agree. And that was the strikes that we saw in multiple different sports a week ago in response to what is currently going on in this country. And I'll just start out. I know me and Matt are both on the same page with this, and it seems like there's a lot of people that are kind of in agreement with me and Matt, which is good to see. You're always going to have the people on the other side that are going to say the things that you would expect them to say, but I think it's really cool that we're starting to see the athletes, come into so much power. I'd say, I don't know, maybe if it's just because I was naive or I just didn't know, but I think if this happens 10 years ago, you don't see something like this. But with everything going on, I think it's very cool that we've seen the athletes kind of take things into their own hands, kind of prove to everyone that they don't need to play sports. I think it was Sean Doolittle. I'm pretty 99% sure he was the one that said that sports are the reward for a functioning society. And right now, we are not a functioning society here in America. So I think it's very cool that the athletes took the time to say, listen, us playing right now, that's not doing anything. That's not bringing attention to the issues that are currently going on in the country. So they, they didn't just say, okay, we're not going to play today, and then we'll just come back tomorrow. They took meetings. They talked to different people within the sport, out of the sport, leaders from multiple different paths of life. And they not only sat out and went on strike, basically, they came up with action plans as a way to hopefully kind of help fix society. And this isn't going to be done immediately. This action plan that they are going to create. It wasn't going to end everything immediately, but we need to get to a point where we start to take these kind of small steps towards fixing society. And I think the strikes, at least from what I've seen, from what's come out of them, from the multiple leagues, I think the athletes are kind of making a good starting point.
Yeah. So we live in a country where athletes activate more change than politicians do. So take that as you may. I'm not going to try and get too political with it because we live in a very divisive world today. But you hit the nail on the head, Ryan. It's awesome to see the players that we look up to in many ways and that we cover and all this stuff really use the platform that they have, and it's a powerful platform. And I don't think a lot of us realized how powerful of a platform sports were until obviously we had the shutdown with COVID in March, and we kind of felt that void. But then we saw the power of sports to have this platform, especially in this bubble setting too, for a lot of these leagues, to be able to enact change. And it's, to me, it makes me really proud to be able to say, like, we all work in sports, we cover sports, we watch sports, because it's probably the most productive thing in America right now in terms of enacting change, as opposed to a lot of local and state governments. And obviously that process, as you mentioned, just because of the way our government's structured, is going to take a longer period of time. But I think the big thing is that the conversation is starting, and it has started, and the actions that the players are trying to enact ultimately is going to help get the ball rolling for government down the road to be able to make changes. There's obviously, as you mentioned, going to be those people on the other side. I don't really want to get into the other side of it. But it's to sit there and say, like, it's their job to entertain you and nothing else. It's like the shut up and dribble mantra that we heard a couple years ago. these people are human, right? There's more to these players than just sports, and they have these goals for society to try and enact change, and we should all be proud of the fact that they're using their platform, right? Because that's something we would want, and not to get it political again, it's something we would want our politicians to do the same with their platform. So it makes me proud to say that I love sports and love these players and the stuff they're doing. It makes for really good role models, I think, for a lot of us, and not only just for kids, for us too, for people to look up to be like anyone while doing their job could also make a difference and enact change. I think it's really cool. It makes me really proud, Ryan. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. We just wanted to start the podcast talking about that. We don't want to go too deep into it. In fact, if you look and listen to the Halper Bros podcast, they basically recorded an entire episode while all that was going on the other day. So
And it was one of those days too when so it was Wednesday when it started. Really eventful birthday for me this year with all that going
happy
on.
birthday, by the way.
Thank you. I was fishing for that. No, just kidding. Anyone who's listening, thank you for all the birthday wishes. It was an eventful one. Honestly, some people would say, "Oh, it must have been crazy, or like it must have sucked to have sports kind of shut down on your birthday." It was kind of a cool moment to say that like on this historical day, like I got to see all this happen and unfold, and we kind of knew it was going to happen too. When it kind of first started around 4 o'clock, we all kind of had a feeling, and it makes you proud to be a sports fan. So it was one of those days that's going to be in a textbook one day, that someone's going to pay $100 at college to get and only open 3 times. But in all seriousness, check out their podcast. Go to CNN or wherever you get your news. It's going to be on there too. Probably won't be on one news channel, but it'll be on most of the other ones. But it was really cool to see athletes do that, and it's going to be interesting to follow along too. And there was a lot of change that was made right off the bat too. A lot of action taken, things formed. So it's encouraging, especially after a year of just downs, right? Just emotional downswings left and right. It's cool to see some positive things building. You know what I'm saying, Ryan? Just like some positive momentum a little bit. And we hope that it'll continue.
I agree. I think so. The biggest thing, one of the biggest takeaways, not, there was obviously other stuff that happened, but one of the cool things I saw is that every NBA arena around the country will become a place for people to vote come November, which I think that's something that probably should have been done before this, but I think it's very cool that now these owners and the players are kind of taking things into their own hands and trying to encourage people to take advantage of the right and to vote. I saw a statistic. I think it was Chris Paul that said the quotation. I might be off on that. Don't check me. But I think Chris Paul said that he was disappointed to hear that only about 20% of the players in the league were registered to vote, which is that's concerning. And that's likely not just an NBA issue either. That's probably a big issue for a lot of this country. So I also think that if you can get, and I think they did say that everyone in the NBA is now like going to be registered to vote, which is good. But I think that if you get these athletes kind of into that stratosphere and kind of, because they used to do like these rock the vote things back in the day. I think if you show like these athletes kind of like talking about using your right to vote, I think that would get a lot more people out as well.
Well, absolutely. And there's a lot of cool things you could do as a professional organization, not just in the NBA, to get people to come out, right? Like to do like promotional things at your arena. So there's all kinds of things you could do to not only, promote the team, but also promote all these other things like to vote and do everything else. And sports are definitely a lot more popular in this country than a lot of things. So that's going to definitely get a lot more voter turnout, hopefully. It's crazy seeing all the people that I know that aren't registered to vote, old and young, or people that just choose not to vote. And I encourage everyone to vote. If you don't know how to register, call me, text me, email me. I'll help you out. Ryan knows I've been a pretty big political guy for a long time now. Took a couple years off when we were at school to have a little fun. But It's definitely an interesting time to live in, but as you mentioned, Ryan, some of the things that are enacted now, I think will really help start to get the ball rolling, and also the conversation started too. I think that's really important, um, especially to make sure all these stories are told too, right? And I think there's some leagues that do it really, really well, and I'm not throwing other leagues under the bus, but there's some leagues that do it really well of telling the stories that aren't always told either the correct way or not necessarily brought to certain light in today's modern news landscape either. We live in the age of spin. So a lot of these leagues are bringing facts into the arena, which is nice to say.
Yeah, Matt, you said that this will help spark a conversation, hopefully, and that's why we wanted to start the podcast with this, because we can't, in all good faith, stay silent about these things. I mean, we do kind of want this podcast to just be us, like we did at our college radio show, talking about sports, telling some jokes, messing around, but there's serious things going on in our country right now, and we can't just act like there's nothing going on. So that's why we wanted to start the podcast talking about this. As I said, as Matt alluded to as well, the Halper Bros, their second episode, I guess, was all about basically what was going on during the day when the strikes were occurring. So go listen to that. Just get involved, really. If nothing else, that doesn't mean that you have to, go to protests or do anything like that. But even just, researching information, learning new things, that's so big now, especially with everything going on. Just become as knowledgeable as you can and just pass it on. But
And one thing too, in terms of researching and getting your news sources, make sure you go to a fact-based website too,
yes,
and then formulate your own opinion. So, CNN, 538 for more of like election-based stuff. Ryan, you could interject too if I'm missing a bunch. There's a certain amount of credible places that you go to get the information, and then you could formulate your own opinion. That's what I at least try and preach to everyone. Because a lot of times you turn on a TV and you're immediately getting someone else's opinion. It's good to formulate your own opinion, because then you could contribute to this conversation that we're all trying to have to try and generate this change.
yeah, I agree 100%. So I think that was a good constructive way to start episode number 3. Before we move on into the other stuff, this is something that we did not have on our list, but I wanted to bring up because I think it's important. I think it's something that it involves the sports field and the entertainment field, which is kind of what this brand was founded upon, sports and entertainment. Chadwick Boseman sadly passed away the other day at the age of 43. He was going through something that nobody even knew about. He kept it under wraps. And despite that, he did a lot of incredible things while he was diagnosed with cancer. And unfortunately, as I say, he did pass away the other day. I will say this, and then Matt, you can interject. I initially first saw him in the movie 42, like up in the Islanders scored. I initially saw him in the movie 42, and he was obviously very good in that. And then the next time I saw Chadwick Boseman do anything was Black Panther. And Matt knows I am not the biggest superhero movie person. I think Black Panther was the first or second Marvel movie I'd ever seen. And he blew me away with what he did in that. And then I started kind of keeping up with him more and more after I saw that movie, because, I mean, not only was he a terrific actor, it seemed like he was an even better person. So to see that come across my Twitter feed late the other night, it kind of made me put a lot of different things in perspective. It's if nothing else, I said this when Kobe Bryant died in January. I've said this when other people have died this year. You really don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So just keep that in mind. Do things that you want to do. Try to live your life the best that you can. I think that Chadwick would kind of agree with doing that, because it seems like that's what he did.
Yeah, I was at work when that kind of broke. We all didn't really know. We didn't believe it at first because you looked at him, and this is another component too, where you don't know what someone's going through just by looking at them. And you look at the guy and you see that he's confident and spreading all this joy and confidence and happiness into the world, and being a real life hero for people, and to see that he struggled with that for so many years, in a lot of ways, it's inspirational that you can still make such an impact on the world. But it's also tragic to see that someone went through that while doing that at the same time. And that was my first introduction to him as well. Ryan was with 42. He played a lot of important people in history through all of his films. So make sure you go and search him on Google. Watch all the films if you haven't. Did a really good job as Thurgood Marshall as well. It was sad. It's just part of how 2020 this script has gone this year. But yeah, it's for someone who made an impact in both spheres of entertainment and sports. It was not what I wanted to see late Friday night. That's for sure.
So we're sorry that we started this podcast off with serious stuff and very sad stuff, but it was just very important to talk about those two things. I think that as I said, we'd like to make sure this podcast most of the time is just about happy debating kind of stuff, but it was important to kind of touch on those two things first, and I'm sure Matt would agree. But now we can get into some sports talk, where you're going to start with Major League Baseball. Next month, if you can believe it, is the final month of the season, because it is August 30th, September, the final month of the season. It's come by very quick, which I guess isn't too surprising, a 60-game sprint to the finish. And I do have to apologize about something. The trade deadline is tomorrow, but before we get any further, I do have to apologize because on this podcast, on episode 1, I said that the White Sox, they were looking good, but this wasn't their year. They'd probably fall back down. And they've made me eat those words, because as I'm looking at the standings right now, they are 21-13. They are first place in the American League Central. They have the best run differential in the American League, the second best in the entire league, behind the Dodgers, who are at plus 90. The White Sox are currently plus 42. So I was wrong. I was wrong about the White Sox. It seems like in a 60-game season, of course, anything can happen. And Matt, we're not going to go division by division, but I did want to talk about the AL Central. It seems like the White Sox could really make a run at this.
Well, this is turning into many ways kind of a jam-packed division, with Cleveland starting to pick things up a little bit. I wouldn't even before our diehard baseball fans that I know are going to listen to this react to this. Detroit's only 4 games out. So there's 4 teams that are kind of right there that could make a punching chance, at least making the playoffs because of the way it's structured this year. But yeah, Ryan, you were quick to write off Chicago. A lot of people I know like them back in March before the coronavirus happened, and even when we kind of came back in July, it's one of those young, trendy teams that you see. It's like kind of like the Padres, but I think Chicago, at least looking from the preseason lens, was a little farther ahead in regards to that. Even with that, even when losing some guys like Michael Kopech, and I know they just had to put Gio Gonzalez on the injured list too, they're still a really good team. It's crazy what Jose Abreu did the other weekend. What, he hit 6 home runs in 4 games?
Something like
or
that.
Something
yeah.
like that. They have a lot of really good position players. And it's tough with a division like this because there's been a couple different winners over the past decade or so. It hasn't been as dominated as it's been by other divisions. But Minnesota, we thought, was going to be the favorite because of what they did last year, right? But I think Chicago's right there, Ryan, and especially with the fact, as you mentioned, there's only half the season left, basically, of just 1 month. This kind of season's built for the younger teams, kind of built for those teams that start out hot. And even if you kind of fizzle off, you're still going to be right there because of what you did at the beginning of the season. And yeah, you mentioned the run differential. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They're a fun team to watch. They had a no-hitter, I guess not this past week, but the week before, right? Or was that Tuesday? This Tuesday? Might have been this Tuesday. with Giolito. Either way, time is just a concept when you're in your house all day. But yeah, they're good. It's fun to see Chicago have two good baseball teams again because we kind of saw it more when we were kids. But we're not old enough to remember the White Sox really winning the World Series. So to see the White Sox good again is kind of cool to see. That's why I'm kind of enjoying this season, regardless of the fact that my team sucks. It's more from the lens that you get to see like the Padres that are like an exciting team to watch again, like the White Sox, and even the Orioles for a decent stretch of time. So it's cool to see the teams that we don't normally see at the top get to be at the top. So Ryan, I wouldn't write off any more teams just yet based off your record this season. But Chicago's a trendy team to watch. They're fun. I will vouch for that.
Matt's Red Sox are 12-22, the third worst team in baseball, but they've made a couple trades. We are moving towards the trade deadline, which is, as I said, tomorrow. We are recording this on August 30th. The deadline is the 31st, and rumors are swirling around a lot of different players, a lot of different teams. I think the big one right now, and this is something that we said could maybe happen a couple of weeks ago or maybe it was just 1 week ago when we were talking about Mike Clevenger and the whole situation he was caught in where he got sent down to their satellite site. They might trade him. There's a good amount of teams that are interested, including the ever popular mystery team that always seems to come up when a big name is available on the trade market. And I've heard that Cleveland, they're either looking to trade him for a good prospect package or they're looking to trade him to get a power bat into that lineup. I could see them making a couple different trades in order to accomplish what they want to accomplish. But, Matt, this is what we said. We said that they had a number of very good starting pitchers, so they could afford to part with one. And Clevenger is probably the guy that they were going to try to look to deal because he has so much value. So I'll ask you this. It said that they were looking for a prospect package of 4 good players. Do you think there's any team between now and tomorrow that's going to give up what Cleveland wants to get Clevenger on their team?
No, I think they have a much better chance of getting a power bat and just going straight up like a fantasy baseball trade almost. I think, and I said this I think a couple weeks ago or last week, or I might have just said this to you on the phone. In such a shortened season, I don't feel like teams are going to be interested necessarily in these big trades, just because it's very hard to gauge talent accurately in such a short season, especially with the fact that you're not playing necessarily in pressure moments because there's no fans in the stands. It's an irregular schedule, 7-inning doubleheaders twice a week for some teams. So I don't think a lot of teams are going to be putting together these big packages. I don't see a lot of teams that are really desperate either. I think there's teams that are trying to make moves actively, and we saw it with San Diego over the past couple days, getting Rosenthal, getting Mitch Moreland, and they're probably a pitcher away or maybe another bat from really contending not for that division but for a pretty prominent wild card spot. So it's or even just seeding wise to a pretty prominent seed. I forget that the format's stupid this year. But Clevenger is an interesting guy. It causes a big front office debate. I saw, teams like the Dodgers aren't going to be interested in those kind of rental players. But do you know off the top of your head what Clevenger's contract looks like?
I think he has 2 more years.
For...
Yeah, I think he has 2 more years of team control.
I might put the Dodgers in that conversation then, because I don't think they're going to be going in on like the short-term rentals that they've done over the past couple seasons to really bolster a World Series run. I think that players like that could be interesting for a team in LA, like you mentioned last week, Ryan, that just has like another Major League Baseball team just sitting in their alternate site. So obviously the rich could get richer, but with a guy like Clevenger too, it's not like he's a bad guy either. He obviously didn't take coronavirus seriously, and that's a big issue, but it's not like it's obviously a 1-year rental, or it's not like he's got a lot of baggage coming with him either. So it could cause a big conversation in a front office. Do I think he might get moved? Probably not. I would be surprised if he did, to be honest. But I don't know. It's intriguing. It could really swing the tide, uh, especially if he goes over to the National League, depending on what team he goes to. Atlanta could really use a guy like him in their rotation.
Yes, I was going to bring up there's a good amount of teams that need a really reliable starting pitcher if they want to make not only a run to the playoffs, but a run through the playoffs. And Atlanta is definitely a team that I think they have the offense. The bullpen's obviously very solid, but with all the injuries they've dealt with, and with Felix opting out, I don't know how big of a difference he would have made this year, but still, that's an arm that they don't have. If they get even one pitcher, that's going to help them out a lot. I mean, right now they are 2 games up on the Phillies. They're tied in the loss column, but Atlanta's played 4 more games and they have 4 more wins. They'll likely win the NL East. I said that I think 2 weeks ago they were kind of a weaker good team, if that makes sense. I said that they were pretty weak for what their record was. I still kind of think that, but if they do get starting pitching, I think that I'd be a little more impressed by them. I don't know if they'd be willing to part with a guy like Drew Waters, who I think is who the Cleveland has been asking for. The Dodgers thing just blows my mind. I mean, Matt, this is by far the best team in baseball. This is one of the better teams we've seen in a very long time. The fact that they want to add to that core group, obviously they have the prospect capital to do that, but that's still just beyond me. San Diego's in it too, which that would be really neat if San Diego's able to put together a package. Chicago, even the White Sox, an in-division trade. Chicago's interested in getting a guy like Clevenger. Like all these destinations, I think would be really, really neat.
But mind you, too, with the Dodgers' recent history in the postseason, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to add that extra insurance. Granted, they lost to a team that was banging on trash cans, but still, you can never have too much insurance. That's what I was saying. Especially, it's not like he's just a 1-year rental, Ryan, like we said, or you're not going to get him for like a month and a half. This guy could be under team control for multiple years, and that's what to go to a team like LA too. That obviously you took on David Price, but you're not paying his full contract. Clayton Kershaw is getting up there in age, so is David Price, mind you, too. So you have a guy like Dustin May who's young, but other than that, you don't really have as much young talent. Obviously, Walker Buehler is there too. But I'm talking in terms of your known guys. To add another young guy into there, so where you could kind of take the pressure off of Kershaw, off of David Price when he comes in next year, might not be a bad deal. And again, when you have all those things to spend and you know what you're going to get out of Mike Clevenger, it's not like he's like just a guy who's had a really good season and they're trying to get the value out of him. This is a guy who's been good for a pretty long period of time of his career. So I don't know why they wouldn't go full send on that. San Diego, they seem like they're very serious, as you mentioned, Ryan. I don't think they would trade in division, though. I don't think they're like that, Cleveland. I don't think they would trade in division.
I don't either.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, one of those teams out west is going to end up getting him if he gets traded. So I really wouldn't be surprised if the Dodgers just said, you know what, screw it. Let's just go get more pieces. And I don't know if they're comfortable with that, but again, multiple years of team control sounds really good to me.
Yeah, and that's a guy that'll kind of flip the balance of the league, as you said, if he is traded. The Rangers, they're a team that might flip the balance and impact the race in a bunch of different ways. Apparently Joey Gallo is now on the trade block. Lance Lynn was already on it. If they trade those two guys, and who knows, maybe they could trade them together to a team. They're another team that could really impact how this playoff race kind of forms, how the stretch run forms over the final month of the season. I mean, Gallo, obviously, everybody knows he's not going to hit for a high average, but very, very elite power. He's a good hitter. Maybe not a good pure hitter, but he's good in the batter's box. He can definitely help a team out. I mean, who knows? Maybe he's the power bat that Cleveland looks for. I don't know. But Lance Lynn, he's done very well this year. I think he's gotten a little lucky. He has a 1.93 ERA, but his BABIP is .197, which is very unsustainable. It's well below his career averages. So I'd assume that if he is traded, he kind of regresses a little bit. But even still, he has a FIP of 3.53 this year. In 2020, that's a good pitcher to have in your rotation. As I said, there's a lot of baseball teams right now that need a good, reliable starting pitcher that can get you not only through September but through a postseason run. So I'm really interested to see, Matt, if the Rangers are able to find packages for these guys, because I think those two guys in a different team, that would be a lot of fun to watch over the final month of the season.
Yeah, the Rangers kind of had that intrigue, I guess, for a couple of years with the new stadium and everything, but they haven't been able to put together really since that run they had 5 or 6 years ago. Lance Lynn's a guy who kind of not necessarily bounced around, but spent a bunch of years in St. Louis, then obviously the Twins, and then the Yankees in 2018. And then he started 33 games last year. So you got reliability out of him in that regard. So he's kind of found some consistency after bouncing around for a year or so. It's again, you know what you're going to get for the most part out of him. A guy who's pitched in the postseason before. I agree with the Gallo assessment too. I'm not biased because I met the guy and he's gigantic, but he's again a guy that you have to plan for in a lineup, and I think that's important. And obviously, like you said, he's not going to be the most consistent in terms of putting the ball in play, but he's still a guy you can't just throw a meatball down the middle of the plate to. So it creates a little bit more of an intrigue in your lineup. So that's. If somebody could swing a trade package for that too, that could really help a team out. There's those teams right on the bubble, like the San Diegos of the world, that kind of need a little bit of both. I don't know if that would suit them best, as opposed to trying to go the Mike Clevenger route and kind of figuring it out there. I don't know how Joey Gallo kind of fits into that lineup, but it's definitely a busier trade deadline than I thought it was going to be in terms of rumors. We don't know if the trades are going to come, obviously, but a lot more rumors than I thought there were going to be. And you forgot to mention that Chaim Bloom's going to trade every single good player on the Red Sox. So if any team needs one of those, we got a bunch of them too. So there's a lot of players available. I'm kind of surprised.
Well, let's briefly talk about that. Brandon Workman and Heath Hembree were traded to the Phillies. Mitch Moreland today was just traded to the Padres. The Red Sox obviously have other players that I'm sure will be in trade discussions up until the deadline tomorrow. Have you been happy so far with the moves that they've made?
The Phillies trade sucked. I was happy with the return they got for Mitchie Two Bags, considering he's Mitchie Two Bags. We weren't going to get a lot out of him. We got 2 top 30 prospects from the Padres out of it, so that's fine. I was surprised they didn't get pitching out of it, but I guess that's the consolation. You get 2 top 30 prospects. The Phillies one, I didn't understand. I thought he was just desperate to trade those guys and settled. I thought if you would have waited until right around now, you could have dealt them to a team like San Diego or another team that was actively looking for a relief pitcher, or even Colorado, seeing that they made a move for Michael Givens. So there was teams out there. The need was there. I don't think you had to settle for Nick Pivetta, and whoever else they got. But I was more happy with the trade today. So if you need Xander Bogaerts or any of our other good players, I'm sure they're available. So make sure you give the front office a call.
Another team that could kind of shift the balance a little bit, maybe not to the impact of the Rangers, but they could still shift the balance. The Diamondbacks, they're a team they're not really out of it, but it doesn't look like they're going to be able to say secure one of those wild card spots. I mean, listen, I was wrong about the White Sox. I could be wrong about the Diamondbacks too, but they're last in the NL West right now. They're only 3.5 out of the wild card, but still, they're at 14-21. They haven't inspired a lot of confidence. They have a negative 30 run differential. They've looked at trading guys like Starling Marte, Archie Bradley, and Robbie Ray. I'm not too sure what they would get for Robbie Ray, who's been very inconsistent. Obviously, he has the strikeout upside, but other than that, he's been very inconsistent throughout his career. But Starling Marte, I think that's a nice plug-and-play outfielder. Any team that trades for him, they're going to get a little bit of everything, which I think could be very big with only a month to go in the season. Archie Bradley, Obviously, teams always need relief pitchers to put towards the back of their bullpen. I think he could be that guy too. So, yeah, I mean, Washington, another team maybe that they've said that they won't sell, but at 12 and 19, you have to at least, I think, consider it. If you're the Nationals, it doesn't look like this is going to be your year. It doesn't look like you're going to be able to do what you did a season ago when they started, 19 and 31 and then won a title. It might not be in the cards this year to repeat. But yeah, I think, Matt, the trade deadline should be pretty exciting. The Yankees have been in talks to acquire some guys, but Matt, I don't know. I mean, I watched the Yankees, and it's just that I understand they have some injuries, but this for a team that came into the year with so much intrigue, with so much hype, we heard about it a lot for months, not even just in March, but going all the way back to December. We've heard it for months that the Yankees, no one's going to compete with them, this and that. Well, they're second in the division right now. They're only one game up on Toronto. And with the injuries they've sustained, I don't even know if it makes sense for them to try to pursue anybody.
Yeah, I don't think they can because all the guys they would have used are currently playing to fill in. It's funny with the Yankees. It's not funny, actually, but it's ironic that they go through the same injury fiasco again. It's like the Eagles, Ryan. Every year they just seem to get injured earlier and earlier in the season. With the Eagles, you got guys getting hurt in training camp now. Had to slip that one in there for you. Also, score update. It's 3-2. It was 3-1, but the Flyers are making it interesting right now. But with the Yankees, I really don't hate them this year, which is kind of crazy to say as a Red Sox fan. But I don't know how these guys get injured all the time, especially when you're playing in like a Little League ballpark like Yankee Stadium. It should be easy to just go up there and have a light swing and hit it into the right field porch. But, it sucks to see a team that kind of brings the ratings up, right, to kind of be dismantled by injury, regardless of if, you like them or dislike them. Because it doesn't diminish the sport, but it kind of takes some of the helium out of the balloon almost, to where it would have been a big factor in the pennant race to have a team like New York be there and be healthy, but who knows what team's going to show up in October, just because of the way the division plays out and everything else. They'll probably still make it to the playoffs. They built themselves a pretty good cushion by playing the Red Sox a bunch of times at the beginning of the year. So good for them. I'm sorry, Glenn, but at least your Islanders are gonna win the Stanley Cup. So it's
the Flyers got a minute left here.
But I want to slip in one thing about Arizona, a team you mentioned, Ryan. Not to drive the bus a different way here.
No, you're good.
Their roster just does not make sense to me. I don't know if you could explain what they're thinking with this, right? Because they go out and they sign. I'm looking at it right now. That's why I'm not looking at the camera. You go out and you get Bumgarner and you pay him an insane amount of money. And then you have some of these guys on your team. I don't really understand. Like, I could see some of them, but they're not playing well this year, right? Cole Calhoun's hitting like 212. Nick Ahmed's hitting under 250. And you got guys on there like Stephen Vogt, John Jay, Jake Lamb, who hasn't really played that much this year either. I don't really know what they're doing. Are they like rebuilding, or are they like just trying to reload? Like, I don't really get this. And then you have some good players like Marte, both of the Martes. I don't really understand this team. I don't know if you could explain this to me. But like the Bumgarner move made no sense to me. And then you just have some of these other guys. It's a weird combination of players to me. It's just weird.
The Bumgarner thing, I was gonna feel bad for whichever team was stupid enough to give him the contract that, to be fair, he had earned, but he earned it because of what he had done years before. He has been, a pretty subpar pitcher for the past couple of seasons, and including this one. It's just, you could tell, you could look at a lot of different stats and graphs and analytics. He's been trending down for a while now. So the fact that Arizona decided to be the team that gave him that awful contract, I'd like to say that I kind of feel bad, but at the same time, all the information's been out there freely. Multiple people that aren't even in a baseball organization have said, why would you sign this guy to a long-term contract? It ain't worth it. I didn't get that either. It's weird because a couple years ago, this was a team that kind of looked like they could be on the way up and maybe kind of compete in the West. But yeah, as you said, now their rosters is just very weird. I mean, they have Ketel Marte, who's a solid piece. In the rotation, they have Zach Gallen, who I think is going to turn out to be pretty good. I think Luke Weaver can be a middle of the rotation guy, but yeah, I mean, other than that, they're not very well constructed. So I mean,
But I'm saying from the perspective too that like you have like I feel like they're not too many moves away from being a good team, but they're also just kind of sitting there. I don't think they're like awful. I don't think this is like a team like a Boston. I don't think they're like that. I don't think they're like Pittsburgh. They're just kind of there, and I just don't understand. And I feel like Arizona is trying to hang on to that run. I guess it was when we were in high school, right? When they were in the postseason, and they kind of had those couple years there where they were kind of poking around in the division series and didn't really do much. I don't like. Obviously, those pieces aren't there anymore, but I just feel like they could have, instead of doing Bumgarner, they could have made other moves that could have put them in a spot to contend in this division. Because outside of the Dodgers, I mean, San Diego's playing well and all, but I think a lot of those other teams are kind of one or two moves away from being at the same level that San Diego's on. Because San Diego's not all the way good yet either. They're playing well, but they obviously still have to be very active at the deadline. So that's why I just, with some of these teams, even San Francisco, even though they've kind of been more active, that they're trying to rebuild some of the talent. But Arizona, I just don't know. Sorry to take the bus in a different direction, but the Bumgarner thing's always kind of bothered me. And then to hear that they could possibly sell. But to me, if they're going to sell this year, Ryan, what was the point of giving Bumgarner that money? Right?
well, I think they thought that they would be a little better than they were. I mean, clearly they thought
With this team?
well, clearly they thought that Bumgarner had a lot in the tank, and as I said, all the statistics would indicate that he does not have a lot left in the tank. As I said, people point to his age. This is a guy that's been in the big leagues for a very long time. He has a lot of mileage on that arm, and especially with the deep postseason runs that the Giants made there for the few years that they were a really solid team. They needed a starting pitcher to sign in the offseason. I get that, but not that starting pitcher. There were other things that they could have done.
I would have been more okay with them trying to get David Price in and absorb some of that money. He would have been more productive than Bumgarner.
Sure.
Even though he sat out this year, but I know what I'm going to get out of David Price, and it's going to be 6 innings of a headache, but it's 6 innings. Bumgarner, I don't think could really go that far anymore, to be honest with you. So it's just one of those teams, and there's a couple of them, not only in baseball, but in all sports, that you kind of just look at, and you're just like, what are you doing? So that's my segment for the week. What are you doing, Arizona? We might have to add that to the segment list.
That could be a good one.
What are you doing, Arizona? That's my segment. Boom, done. Ryan, the Flyers lost.
The Flyers, they did lose. They are now down 3-1 in the series. And listen, I've been on this train for a while. Oh, the Phillies are only down 1 run. I've been on this train for a while, Matt, that the Flyers have not looked good in this series. It's just I hate to criticize players like this because they're living in a bubble. They're away from home. They probably share the same fears and concerns that you and me do. So I hate to criticize these guys because they're going through tough times too. I understand that, but at the same time, outside of Kevin Hayes, it's kind of, and maybe Sean Couturier to a little bit of an extent, it just seems like the Flyers' top six is checked out of the series, and they checked out a couple of games ago. It doesn't seem like they have any motivation or any passion. I mean, you watch them play the Islanders, and now we can shift into the hockey part of this episode. It, it, they weren't fast. It looked like they didn't care. They were turning the puck over carelessly. They couldn't pass to save their lives. It was just they were getting outworked. Like I think for all but maybe one or maybe two periods throughout the first four games of the series, they've looked like a very bad team compared to the Islanders. And the Islanders were a very bad matchup, as were the Canadiens. For the Flyers, a team like Tampa, a team like Washington, that would have been a better matchup for how the Flyers like to play. But a team like the Islanders, we saw it in the regular season, they present a lot of matchup issues for Philadelphia. And am I upset that this series is basically over? Yeah, but at the end of the day, the Flyers gave me some fun times here playing summer hockey. They got me through August, which is pretty neat. They basically got me to football season with that starting up in a couple weeks. So, I'm sad that it's going to end. I really wish it didn't have to end like this, but I think it's pretty clear that the Flyers, they need to shake something up somehow. They have a lot of really good young talent. They obviously have Carter Hart, who's going to be a very good goalie for a while. They have a pretty solid defense core, but I really think that they're missing that top six reliable goal scorer, and I think until they get that, they're not going to take that step from, you'll make the playoffs to this is a title contender. So I don't think they're going to make any, vast, really big moves this offseason. I think they're going to wait. But I think at some point within the next 2 years, you're going to see them try to get that top six sniper or that can score goals, because that was the issue. I mean, they had a lot of guys that were at the bottom of the bottom six. They were kind of contributing here and there. They were scoring goals, but when you're leading goal scorers in the regular season, don't score in the postseason, you're not going to go very far. So, I mean, I'll give credit to the Islanders. They played the de facto one seed, basically, in the second round. They could have, just been like, whatever, we're just happy to be here. But they've played hard every single game. And as a Barry Trotz-led team, of course, that's what you need to expect. And I don't know if the Flyers just weren't ready for it. I don't know if they weren't expecting the Islanders to be as good as they are. But I mean, we both said last episode when we talked about the second round, the Flyers should get past second round in the Eastern Conference Finals. Islanders, they had a good series win against Washington, but it probably ends here. And listen, anything can happen, but realistically, we were wrong. The Islanders, they came in, they handled business, they did what they needed to do, and they're going to be playing for a shot at the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, you got to give them credit. You're a lot more sentimental than I'm going to be when we shift topics with your team. But for the Flyers, you're right. They could have benefited from a guy like Artemi Panarin, who obviously went to New York last year. Maybe not as top six, but a potent goal scorer, I think we can agree, or just a dynamic player. And those players are out there. I don't know if you're going to get one on the younger side, or if you go the cheaper route and go for one who's at the middle of the road in his career. I mean, the Flyers, listen, they have the young talent. I wouldn't be too hard on them either. I think that you had to exhaust a lot of energy to get that one seed because you had to beat the top three teams in the Eastern Conference to get that. So it's not like they just kind of cruised either. You had to use a lot of energy for that. And then you get a team in Montreal who's feeling himself, obviously beating a team in Pittsburgh who's pretty good, at least in the regular season. So obviously I think it's disappointing, and I think a lot of Flyers fans are going to kind of harp on it. You still have some of those guys on the older side that are on the back end of their career that you don't want to waste that back end of the career either. But Glenn Denegris, let's just talk about him for a second.
Hold on. We're not. Hold on. Slow down.
We're not gonna give him airtime here.
We're not talking about Glenn Denegris right now. I do want to say this. Coming into the season, I expected the Flyers to be in contention for a wild card, maybe the third seed in the Metropolitan. And I thought they could win a playoff round, but it's probably not the year for them. And give credit to them. They played very well throughout the regular season. They parlayed that into winning 3 games in the round robin, becoming the 1 seed heading into the Stanley Cup playoffs. And that's more than I expected out of the team at the start of the season. So as I said, you have that group of young guys there, which I think it's definitely helpful. I do want to say one more thing, and then we can talk about Glenn fucking Denegris.
No,
Claude
I got
Giroux.
1 point. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say Claude Giroux. I love Claude Giroux. I've loved him forever. He's always going to end up being one of my favorite Philadelphia athletes. Matt, do you know how he's performed in his last 26 postseason games, now counting this one?
Probably real. I'm assuming you're going to say really bad. Really
He's
poorly.
had 1 goal and 9 points in his last 26 postseason games,
Yeah.
counting tonight. Now, listen, I
But
don't want
he's
to
like
criticize him.
Chara. You can't you can't get rid of him. He's like Chara. He's
No,
going to be on
and-
your team
well-
until the
well,
day
he
he
has a no-
retires.
He has a no movement clause, so we can't move him anyway. But listen, I respect the hell out of what he's done for the team. I'm sure it's very tough because he just, he's missing his wife, he's missing his kid. I listen, I get that. If you're the captain of a hockey team, you need to do better than 1 goal and 9 points in 26 postseason games. That's unacceptable. And you can say that for most of the Flyers' top 6 in this playoff run, but you can't just rely on your depth guys to generate all the offense. You need your proven stud guys. And listen, Giroux's not as good as he used to be. He's still a very solid player. He's not what he used to be, which is a shame because he carried the team on his back for years when they were complete trash. And now when they're finally going to be good again, he's not going to be that guy. But if you're the captain, you need to be better than that. So I'm hoping that maybe with an off season, he kind of recharges batteries, maybe retool his game a little bit, come back strong next year, and then next postseason run, he'll shut everybody up. But yeah, man, at least for me, that's unacceptable from the captain of my team.
Well, yeah, it shows you just can't rely on him as much. But hockey is a weird sport to where if you have a guy who's a walking legend in the city, you're never going to be able to get rid of him regardless. I have a 45-year-old 6'9" defenseman who's just going to keep playing until he just decides to retire. So it's a common practice in hockey. Joe Thornton, for the longest time out in San Jose, no matter how gray his beard got, he was still out there playing. You got to give credit to the Islanders, Ryan. I think one pretty underrated part of them in my eyes is their goaltending pair,
Yes.
right? Of a guy in Semyon Varlamov who's kind of rediscovered himself, obviously kind of had some issues leading to his departure with Colorado, but
Yes, he did.
he's kind of had a lot of issues off the ice. So not the greatest gentleman off the ice. He's kind of refound his game on the ice. And then you pair him with Thomas Greiss, who the average hockey fan or the casual hockey fan or the Islanders fan who just picked it up last month isn't going to know in Thomas Greiss. And Thomas Greiss has been pretty solid.
Jesus Christ.
I
Love him.
So when I first moved to Monmouth my freshman year, we would have the basic cable in there, and that was before I kind of started streaming everything. So I'd watch Islanders games, and that's when Thomas Greiss was kind of coming on the scene. It was him, and you might have to help me out with who his partner was in net. But in any case, he played really solid. He's not a pushover either, and he got the win tonight, I think, too. So I think that's a very underrated, not so talked about part of Glenn Denegris' Islanders is their goalies. And I think that's going to be really important depending on who they play in the next round and going forward.
Yeah,
Big trade in baseball just happened, by the way, too.
Oh.
Austin Nola just got traded to the Padres.
Padres are making moves.
For top prospect Taylor Trammell, I think I said it right. And then a bunch of other people that I don't feel like reading on the podcast. But Nola hitting 306 on the season. I know you hate batting average, but big trade. Get your you get your catcher that you need if you're San Diego. So that's a good trade for them.
Yeah, that's interesting. They had picked up, I know Jason Castro earlier in the day, but it's cool to see the Padres just kind of trying to go all in and make the playoffs this year. I mean, clearly they see an opportunity with their young guys, and more power to them. I wish the Phillies could kind of just be that wild too. I don't, unfortunately, I don't really think they can with the way their farm system is currently set up. But it's cool. I hope that this works out for San Diego, and they make a nice long run in the postseason bubbles in October. But wow, look at that!
It seems
just
like they
broke
give
some
up
news.
a lot. Seems like they give up a lot.
I don't.
I don't know if it's as big of a. Oh, they give up a lot of people to get this guy.
Yeah, it's a little surprising.
So
I mean, Austin Nola he's had a very solid season. Last year was his debut. He put up an OPS of close to 800, but they're banking on this guy helping them. I mean, he's got versatility. He doesn't just have to play catcher, but yeah, I mean, I guess that's what you have to do on the trade market. And if they really think that this is going to be the guy that helps them make that push, then I guess we'll see. The Mariners have a very nice outfield prospect pool now, though, especially adding Trammell. That's big because now they have Kelenic, they have Julio Rodriguez, so that's a nice group that they have for the future.
Yeah, just broke some news there. Actually, that happened at 10:31, so we're behind by 32 minutes or 31 minutes.
Yeah,
but
close enough.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. But so the other Eastern Conference matchup, Matt.
They suck.
The Lightning
They're horrible.
could close out the series tomorrow. They are up 3-1 right now. Boston won game one. And Matt, before you talk, I'm just going to bring up my phone here because I did want to
read the text, please, because I'm not gonna be as sentimental like you were with the Flyers. I'm gonna be a little bit more hard on the Bruins. So go ahead, read the message.
So let me just scroll up here because I just sent it in the group chat yesterday. So I just have to find. Nope. Okay. Oh, I almost had it there. Sorry. This is great.
You're doing great.
I'm looking. Oh, here we go. Okay. And I quote, this was after game one, which Boston won 3-2. All capital letters, Stanley Cup, here we come, fuck Tampa. And clearly the
right.
Lightning somehow learned that you sent that text message because listen, I told this to you. I told you that text is going to age real poorly when Tampa Bay rips off 3 straight wins. And look what happened. They ripped off 3 straight wins. 4-3 in overtime, which I think really set the tone for the series. It seemed like after that, Boston they stopped caring. They just kept getting worked. Game 3, shellacked 7-1, and then Game 4 yesterday, 3-1, and they can close it out tomorrow, Matt. So what do you think? Is Boston coming back? Are they coming back down 3-1?
No, they're a bunch of bums.
Oh,
they're just so talented, and I just don't understand why they cannot play Tampa Bay. This is the only team they don't play well against. They'll beat anyone else that they play, unless it's a rookie goalie from the worst team in hockey in the Stanley Cup Final, Game 7. But listen, you're right. When they lost in overtime, the Marchand goal to send it to overtime was big. And I said this when I was in the office at work. I said, whoever wins this game is really going to have an advantage. Tampa Bay takes it. Then obviously you have Game 3 and 7-1. And I don't know. I can't explain or justify anything that happened in that game. They looked out of it in Game 4. It just was in a lackluster, uninspiring performance. DeBrusque got a goal to make it 3-1. But at that point, it's like, they weren't showing me anything. They had these 5-on-3 power points at some point. Halak just... You can't put all the blame on Halak either. I think they're not lazy, but they're just not... It isn't the team that won the President's Trophy. And I don't know what this Houdini act is that has happened here in the bubble. They're 5-7 in the bubble. Really at no point, other than a couple games against Carolina, did I sit there and say, this team could really make an impact here going into September. And Tampa Bay, for whatever reason, is just a horrible matchup for the Bruins. And then Nick Ritchie gets this cheap hit on, I think it was, I can't even remember. It was either Braden Point or somebody else. Oh no, Yanni Gord. He like cheap shotted him. He wasn't even near the boards and put his head directly into the side of the glass. Got a 5 minute major there, and it was just a downhill spiral after that in game four. And listen, these older veterans aren't getting any younger. The Bergerons of the world, Chara, even Rask, who's going into the last year of his deal, Krejci, the list goes on. Even Marchand's in his 30s now. So this core is not getting any younger. And the fact that they haven't won a Stanley Cup since 2011, and I'm pointing to it right now. I don't know if you could see it, Ron. I'm pointing to this banner since 2011. With this core, plus a top 3 goal scorer, if not the best goal scorer in the NHL, and David Pastrnak, on top of some of the best young talent in the league, and guys like Jake DeBrusk, guys on defense like Charlie McAvoy, Matt Grzelcyk. This team's not a pushover team. And then you have Charlie Coyle having the best postseason of his life. And they just squander stuff like this. I don't understand how this team just can't put it together when it matters in the postseason. It's usually Tampa Bay that's the Achilles heel. It's going to be like that tomorrow night. Big whoop, you know. That's another second round exit, 4-1 at the hands of the Lightning. It happens every other year, it seems like. I'm not going to be as sentimental as you are with the Flyers. I know the Bruins have a lot of young talent, but they also have a lot of older veterans. You got to figure out what you want to do with Rask. He's in the last year of team control. You're running out of time here. Would Rask have made a difference in this series? Probably not, because you have to score goals to beat the Lightning, and they can't do that for whatever reason. Scoring 2 goals in 2 games, you're not going to win a series against Tampa Bay. So, congrats, Glenn. You have the last team remaining out of all of us. If they come back and win a game or 2, then maybe I'll get some confidence back. But Halak's team's overwhelmed, really overwhelmed Wednesday night in a 7-1 loss. It's disappointing. You had 100 points in the regular season, right? Best team in hockey. And then you come here and you go 5-7 in 12 games. I don't get it. I don't get what isn't putting it together. And obviously, we can't criticize too much because they're in the bubble. They're not with their families. But at the same time, you're also the best team in hockey. So I think there's a middle ground to be found there. Maybe bums was too big of a term. Just uninspiring performance. We'll put it at that. It's disappointing. This happens every time that they win the President's Trophy too. And then they usually play Tampa Bay in the second round, and then the same thing happens. It's stupid.
This happens every time they win the President's Trophy. I wish I could say every time my team wins the President's Trophy. That'd be nice.
Ryan, the fact that the Bruins have been in the top half of the Eastern Conference pretty much since high school for us, and they haven't won a Stanley Cup since we were in like 8th grade, that's a problem. That's a big problem. Especially when you have teams like Washington who are shooting themselves in the foot every first round, so they're not going to be a factor. Then you have teams like Pittsburgh who are either really good or suck. And then it's kind of the open window. And you just got to avoid Tampa Bay. I have to tiptoe around the bracket every year to make sure we're not going to play the Lightning because we're probably going to lose. And last year was the perfect example because Columbus took care of it for us in 4 games. And then we went to the Stanley Cup final and blew it to a rookie goaltender on the worst team in hockey. So I don't know what else Don Sweeney can do with this team. It's more that, and I'm not blaming on Bruce Cassidy. I just, for whatever reason, the talent just doesn't come all together when it needs to come all together. It'll be great in October. They're a great team to watch in October, but I don't get it. It's just frustrating. And I feel like a lot of the fan base is probably the same way. The fan base is going to sit there and pound their fist. Oh, it's Tuukka Rask's fault. Oh, he was. It's not Tuukka's fault. Last year was Tuukka's fault. This year's not. It just doesn't make sense. And that's why it's frustrating. You're like, oh, the Flyers are going to be great. You know, there's rainbows. We just need one more piece. The Bruins don't need anything. They have everything they need to win a Stanley Cup. And I think you can objectively agree with me there.
Well,
when you look at the roster
apparently
top to bottom.
Apparently they don't. Apparently they're missing something.
Ryan, if you go on like the website and just look at their roster, you could sit there and say, wow, it's a Stanley Cup finalist team like year in and year out. and they've had the same core for a long time. And they went out and give them credit. They shedded a lot of the dead weight, like guys like David Backus and other guys that were just kind of just taking up shifts. And they go and give it to the young guys, and they bring in, to their credit, more young guys like Joakim Nordstrom, Par Lindholm, guys that play well, and it still just doesn't click. And there's really been, thankfully, no injuries for this team this year either. And I don't get it. It's a mess. So it's not. We're running out of time with this team, so it's just frustrating. It's like it would be like if the Patriots didn't win 6 Super Bowls when Tom Brady was there.
See,
it would be frustrating, right?
This is the shit that I'm talking about with this guy, right? Like this.
Look at this. You see all those numbers back there for the Celtics, all the times that they won. That's what we expect as a Boston fan. And when you have a talented team like the Bruins, you should win more cups. I look at a team like St. Louis or some other teams that won the Stanley Cup over the past 10 years, and I'm like, this team's a joke. The Bruins were better than that team that year.
It's the NHL playoffs. Anything can happen. Things can be wild. And we're seeing that out west, Matt, because, not to cut you off of your Bruins thing, I can tell you're very upset, but
just go talk about actual good teams.
Another fan base that's probably upset is Colorado. A team that, once again, in episode number 2, myself and Matt both said, oh, yeah, the Avalanche, they're on a crash course for Vegas for the Western Conference Finals. Well, look how wrong we were. They are down 3-1. They could be eliminated tomorrow as well, so 2 series could end tomorrow. And, yeah, I don't know if it's just because Grubauer got injured and now they've had to rely on Francouz for the past 3 games, but yeah, this was a team that they're playing in Dallas that did not score a lot of goals in the regular season, but all of a sudden they win Game 1 5-3, they win Game 2 5-2, Game 3 they score 4 goals, but they let up 6, and you're like, okay, well, it looks like Colorado's kind of getting back into things, but then in Game 4 today, Dallas wins 5-4. Dallas is scoring like we haven't really seen them score all season long, and listen, I just said it's the Stanley Cup playoffs and anything can happen, but I don't see how Colorado wins the next 3 games. I really do think it's impossible.
No, I agree. You look at Dallas, and I said this the other day when I was watching their game. If you took their roster like 5 years ago, they'd have like an all-star team, right? Corey Perry, Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, like these guys are still obviously very good now, but I'm just saying these guys, there's a lot of veterans. Joe Pavelski's there too, Blake Como's there, Alexander Radulov, who's I think very good, former Bruin Anton Hudobin in net. You have Miro Heiskanen who's playing well too. It's even guys like John Klingberg. It's just if you looked at this team like 5 years ago, they have a lot of guys offensively that. You have a former, I think Corey Perry won the MVP 1 year too when he was in Anaheim or something. He was one of the best players in the NHL. And then you put it on top of Pavelski, Radulov, the whole 9 yards. It's a solid team in a vacuum. It's a team that can make a run. And what are we in right now? We're in like a vacuum setting in a bubble. So. It's probably not the most exciting team that the NHL was hoping would make the Stanley Cup final, but it's a team that probably will make the Stanley Cup final. I could really see it. They're just playing really great hockey. And it's disappointing for Colorado, too, because of all the hype that they got, especially from us as well. And I think they're the more exciting team, but Dallas just has the vets, Ryan, and vets will win you games in the playoffs. So, give them credit. It's not the most exciting hockey, but they'll get it done. They also, by the way, have the worst goal song. It's like this, like heavy metal, like just screaming like Dallas, like Dallas Stars. Whoa. And I'm like, what is this? I was so upset when they were scoring goals the other night because I had to hear that like 5 times. That's my hockey analysis for you, Ryan. I'm sure you're going to have a much more intuitive analysis than I will, but their goal song sucks. So there you go.
You know what my intuitive analysis is going to be, Matt? There's normally some weird-ass team that just makes a run every year in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I guess this year it's the Stars. I mean, I'd like to say it's the Islanders too. And, I guess you could make the case for both of them, but
Oh, that would be a worst case scenario for the NHL if that was a Stanley Cup final.
yeah, the ratings for that would not be very good. I can agree with you on that
NFL, especially with the NFL, NBA, WNBA, and Major League Baseball all going on. Oh, no. They need a Vegas Tampa Bay series. Or Boston. They need one of those three teams to be in there.
Yeah, I agree 100%. The other one, you just brought up Vegas. They're the other matchup going on right now, and they are actually playing a game right now. Vegas is up 2-1 in the first period. That's game 4. Vegas leads that coincidentally 2-1. Max Pacioretty scored the first goal. Patterson for the Canucks got it back a couple minutes later, but then Chandler Stevenson netted his second of the postseason. So now it is 2-1 Vegas. I said that Colorado and Vegas run a crash course for the Western Conference Finals. I was half wrong about that, but I do still think Vegas is going to represent the West in the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, we've been wrong a lot on this podcast so far. Probably not a good track record for us.
No.
But Vegas and Tampa, I think they really need that. But we'll see. It was St. Louis last year, Ryan. Carolina made a run to the East Finals last year. So it's hockey. It's not like other sports. It doesn't happen a lot in really any other sport, especially in leagues like the NBA and the NFL. You rarely see a team like that kind of make a run. But Dallas isn't bad. They were a top 4 team in the regular season. But Vegas looks really good. I wouldn't be surprised if they won.
So that was our hockey talk. Be sure to tune into episode number 4 next Sunday to see how we got things wrong again. Now we have...
Yeah, when the Bruins came back and won in Game 7. That's what's good. That's what I hope we were wrong about.
So...
Right, Ryan?
Yeah, well, so you know how in college you have your group of 5 teams. Well, we kind of have a group of 3 here of sports topics that we're going to talk about that we've never talked about before. This is the first time we're going to talk about them here on the podcast. And for those of you that are watching the video version, I am finally getting my camera back on and ready to go. So there we go. You guys did not miss anything. Don't worry. Okay, we're gonna get to Pops My Tarts. That's something we're gonna talk about. But Matt, I'm gonna start with you because this was the first thing that we kind of brought up. Soccer, big things going on in the world of soccer. Messi wants to, it seems like as it would seem, he wants to leave Barcelona, and I think that from what I was reading, he might go to Manchester City. And which means that he would play for NYCFC as an MLS diehard like myself.
Ideally, the goal would be for him to eventually get over there. I don't know if he will. At least there. So the situation is getting quite messy.
So that was talking soccer. We're going to move to NASCAR now. The final race of the regular... No, I'm just kidding. Matt, I
got to give you my analysis here because as Professor Matt Harmon would say, DeLuca loves his soccer. Yeah. So I got to get in my my soccer points
So
here.
We're going to get... By the way, here's a teaser for you. We're really going to try to get Matt Harmon on the podcast as a guest pretty soon. Listen, guys, if you don't know who Matt Harmon is, you're missing out. You're going to love him as a guest on this podcast. He's going to give you a lot of insight, a lot of analysis, so stay tuned for that. But, Matt, this is your realm here, so give the listeners and the viewers some analysis here about this entire situation.
Yeah, so I said this is quite messy, and it really is. So if you would have told me that Messi would want to leave at some point, I honestly wouldn't have been too surprised, right? Because you would think that he would be like the Tom Brady lifer at Barcelona. But in reality, they still had a really good season, right? They were second in the Spanish Primera Division, and they still made it to pretty deep into the Champions League. But obviously they had that infamous 8-2 loss a couple weeks ago at the hands of Bayern Munich, and Messi just was doing everything at that point. and it's kind of confusing in some ways with Barcelona too, because I'm trying to pull up some stats here, but you go out and you get guys like Anton Griezmann, who's a top talented player in the world. You have Luis Suarez, who's still there, who's like 90 now, but he's still playing and still playing pretty well. There's still guys around Messi. Not as much as in past years, but still enough to go out there and win games. But sometimes it's, sometimes we don't know what's going on inside. And obviously with soccer, there's a lot of drama on the European side and with these bigger leagues because it's a lot of money invested in these players too. So it's pretty entertaining to just see the off the field stuff, and it'd be a big kind of reunion for Messi if he goes to Man City with his old coach and Pep Guardiola. Man City, obviously, excluding last year with Liverpool's big run, has kind of dominated the Premier League over the past couple years, and they have a lot of win now talent. And I think Messi, in some ways is trying to do what Ronaldo did and try and win in another country and win in another league. And I think that would add to your legacy if you're Messi. And I think I was kind of surprised when, actually I wasn't surprised when Ronaldo didn't end up going to a team in the Premier League, but I think Man City is a really good fit, obviously with Pep Guardiola and a lot of the other talent there. And then it adds the prospect, as you mentioned, a lot of people are saying, is he going to go to MLS one day? I don't think he's going to go to NYCFC if he does. David Beckham has a stake in Miami now with the team. I think that's where he'll end up. But it's, the more I read about it, the crazier the story gets on whether or not he wants to leave. Some people are confident he's going to stay. He skipped out on their coronavirus testing in practice the other day, which kind of shows that he's trying to get his way out. But I think Man City's probably one of the more serious teams that's going to go out and make a play for him. It's a guy like Ronaldo who is still a dynamic win-now player. I think Messi's not the much better player than Ronaldo, but I think he's better than Ronaldo. And a lot of people will disagree with me there, but he's the GOAT in my eyes, and it'll be exciting to see him in the Premier League. It'll give me more of a reason to wake up at like 6 a.m. to watch soccer. Because I don't right now. I do the first weekend, and then I never do. But if he goes there, could add a lot of intrigue. I think this would be the summer for him to make the jump too.
Yeah, that's probably what I would have said too, Matt. I think you hit it right on the head. You okay?
Yeah, I didn't want to cough into the microphone.
Okay. All right, yeah, he's got his glass of water, so he's prepared. But yeah, Matt, I agree. You said it probably a lot better than I could. I would probably have said something along those lines, but yeah, I agree with everything you said.
But it's a big deal. It's a very big deal. Yeah. It's like it's the soccer equivalent of Tom Brady and Peyton Manning leaving. So, and I think a little bigger actually. So, I hope and he's going to get a lot more exposure too if he goes to the Premier League, because they have this huge broadcasting package with NBC Sports now. They've had it for some time. In La Liga and everything else, there's that exposure's not there. I have to go online to watch it. I know. So I think that's a big, kind of a big legacy move too.
Sure.
So it'll be, yeah, sure.
I agree. Yeah, those are very good points.
Are you a Messi or Ronaldo guy, Ryan? You strike me as a Messi guy.
Yeah, I'd probably go with Messi. I don't know. That's just.
Ronaldo is a big penalty kick and 6 feet out of the box, put it in guy. Messi could do a little bit more with the ball, in my eyes.
Yeah, that's hard for me to disagree. So yeah, I agree. I would probably say the same thing. But that was our first ever soccer segment on Best Available Podcast.
Just wait until I get Harmon on for a full hour, and you're going to have to talk about like the New York Red Bulls. Are you going to be saying the same thing?
Yeah, I'll just be like, you know what, Harmon, that's a great way to put it. That's probably.
Can you name 3 players on the New York Red Bulls? Can you name 3?
Yeah, I can actually.
Actually, I don't. Can you name 5 Major League Soccer players? There we go.
5 Major League Soccer players. Well, you don't think I can name players on the Red Bulls, so I'm gonna name them.
I don't know if you're looking it up right now. I can't see what you're doing.
I just clicked on their Twitter account. I thought that was their website. Hold on. It was their website. Why did it bring me to? Okay, I guess I clicked something else. Hold on. I just got to get to the roster page here.
Okay.
Okay. You know what? I'll tell you how many of these guys that I know. Club. That's right. It's called Club.
Yeah, it is. Imagine switching back and forth between that and basketball. That's a lot of different terms.
Okay. Chris Lima, I think I've heard of. Is that how you
Interesting.
say his name? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, he is from New Jersey, so that might be part of the reason.
Well, there's a guy who played at Ryder on the Red Bulls. I'm waiting to see if you find
Well, I see
him.
someone from Homedale. Is that the same guy?
No, this guy's an international player who came
Oh,
over.
okay. I see.
Well, the guy from Homedale is a really good player. He's their captain, Sean Davis. I worked with his brother at one point, so he's a nice guy.
All right. Well, it
It's Florian Valo is the guy who played for Ryder, number 22.
okay. Yeah.
So yeah,
Admittedly, I don't know any of these guys. Like Kaku
oof.
seems like someone that I've heard of
Kaku.
before. I don't know.
Yeah, he's their DP. He's their DP. He's their number 10. He's their equivalent of Messi,
Yeah, that's
center attacking midfielder. Bring him in from, I believe, I'm not going to guess. I forget what country they brought him in from, what league. But he's pretty good.
but yeah.
Comes off the bench for them now, though.
Yeah, that's So I still have a little bit to learn, admittedly, about Major League Soccer as a whole. But yeah, listen. When Harmon comes on, he'll teach me a few things, and then I can talk about the sport without sounding like a complete moron. So that'll be good.
No, it's fun. It's a growing brand. I used to be an opponent of soccer
No,
too,
not
Ryan.
you.
You were.
You've always been a big fan.
Well, no, you'll enjoy the Harmon segment because you'll just yell at me for something the whole time and blame me for stuff. But I'm more excited for this next segment, Ryan. It's a return of something from the warm
Oh
up
boy.
that we used to do. It's the Power Minute.
Yes, and
Zoom,
there's
zoom.
a lot of times we couldn't get to the
NASCAR
power
Power
minute
Minute.
on the warm up.
Some of that was intentional.
All I wanted was one damn minute to talk about what happened, and I guess that was too much to ask
Yeah,
for.
William Byron, man, just gotta
Yeah,
win,
so
man. Zoomed around in that number 88 car,
there's
right? Or
number
80?
24,
What
so you're
number?
close,
20.
off by about 60. Same team, so you're close. Yeah, they ended the season at Daytona, the regular season at Daytona this year. Some people had an issue with that because with Daytona, it's really, I mean, you have to have skill to drive on a track like that because you're so close to these other drivers for most of the race. But it's also just luck. You just have to hope that you're not in the wrong place at the wrong time, getting involved in a wreck. And that's what happened to Jimmy Johnson. Unfortunately, he needed to have a good run, and if he didn't get involved in that wreck late, there's a chance that he might have been able to make it in over Matt DiBenedetto, but he was involved in a late wreck, and that wasn't the only thing that ruined his chances. I mean, missing a race due to COVID, wrecking out early in the season at Darlington, and then there's a couple other things throughout the season that kind of messed him up. But yeah, so Jimmy Johnson in his final season did not make the playoffs. He missed it by 5 points, 5 whole points. And for those of you who don't follow NASCAR, basically it's a point per position. So it was very close. He was the closest one to making the playoffs, but he missed out in his final season. So now he only has 10 more races left to try to get a win this year, and then that's it for full-time action for him. There have been people that want him to come back. I don't think he's coming back. But yeah, the race was actually really entertaining. It was a lot of fun. I'm one of the people that would love to see this elimination, or not the elimination, the regular season finale be at Daytona every year. I think that's kind of cool where they start at Daytona and then they end at Daytona for the regular season. I think that's something cool that they can market, and that's what they tried to do this year. But yeah, William Byron got his first career Cup win, and he picked a heck of a time to do it. He was very close on the bubble entering the race, but with that win, he solidified himself, and he immediately earned his way into the playoffs. So good for him. He was one of 11 drivers to pick up a win this year in the Cup Series. And so right now, he is ninth in the preliminary playoff grid. He has 2,007 points. So he is 3 points up on the cut line, but there's a lot of things that can change. But yeah, Daytona was a lot of fun. I enjoyed watching it. There's some guys that got some cool finishes. Daniel Suarez ran up there for a little bit in the second stage. He unfortunately finished a little behind, probably where he could have if he didn't get involved in a late wreck too. But still 20.
I didn't know who that guy was. I had to look him up.
Well, it's funny. He was with Joe Gibbs actually for a little bit. They brought him up when Carl Edwards suddenly retired, and then he went from Gibbs to Stuart Haas, and then Haas kicked him out, and he had to take this ride in the 96, which for all intents and purposes is not a very good ride. So, but he's been a very respectable driver this year. He's 31st in the points. He missed the Daytona 500. Otherwise, he'd probably be higher. But an average finish of 26th in that car. He's been very respectable this year. But yeah, there were a lot of guys up front towards the end that if they won, they could have clinched their way into the playoffs. Guys like Bubba Wallace, he had a really big run late in the race. But he got wrecked. Well, not wrecked, but he got ran into. And then he got into the wall. His tire got cut, so he had to change that. He actually did charge up there at the end of the race. Ended up finishing 5th. If he had one more lap, he might have made some. It might have been interesting. But Bubba was up there for a little bit. Ryan Newman, who of course was involved in that really, really awful crash in the Daytona 500. He was kind of up there in contention. Of course, he would also end up getting wrecked out. Matt Kenseth, that's another interesting guy. He filled in for Kyle Larson this year after Larson was suspended indefinitely for saying a word that you shouldn't say on an iRacing. So Matt Kenseth, he was up there. He had a heck of a run there for a little bit until he got crashed out. If he won, he would have clinched a spot in the playoffs. So it was really cool. It was really cool to see all those guys up there. Eric Jones and Tyler Reddick and Christopher Bell, Chris Buescher, they were all up there. They all had their chances to win at one point. But as I said, Daytona, it's all bad luck. And those guys, they weren't lucky, and William Byron was. So he got his way into the playoffs, and now we have our field of 16 drivers, Matt, and the playoffs start this weekend.
Is this how I sounded when I talked about soccer? Is this
I suppose,
man.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
I'll watch like a lap of NASCAR and then I'll get bored and I'll switch.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, good for Byron. Doing Smoky Donuts in that number 24 car.
So there's been 2 drivers, Matt, that have won in the 24 car in NASCAR history. It was Jeff Gordon, and it was William Byron became the number 2, the second driver to ever win.
I know who Jeff Gordon is.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
But yeah, the playoffs. Playoffs should be good, Matt. Kevin Harvick is currently the number 1 seed right now. He has 2,057 points, which is a really, really good advantage to start the playoffs with, and Denny Hamlin right behind him at 2,047. So yeah, it'll be fun these first couple elimination rounds to see who gets back over the cut line and who gets eliminated.
I have a question.
Sure.
Why'd they have 20,000 people at the race? Is that true? Did I see that somewhere that they had like 20,000 people there?
I couldn't tell you the exact capacity that they let in. It did seem on TV like a decent number of people. I will say that.
And
this is Florida. You got to remember.
Yeah, but Florida is also home to some of the safest places in the world right now. So it's those were also man-made places. Yeah, I don't know, man. I watched a high school football game the other night in Alabama, and they just do not care about this coronavirus.
No, listen, I mean,
holy
it's
crap,
just,
man. They just. So even I gave NASCAR credit because they at least spaced people out at the beginning, but there was like a decent amount of people there when I had it on, and you could hear the crowd too at some points. So that's just my analysis, my COVID analysis of it was it safe? But it'll be interesting.
Yeah, that was.
I'll take Kevin Harvick. I'll take the chalk. There we go. That's my playoff pick.
That might be a good pick.
Is Joey Slogano in the playoffs?
He's the 4th seed right now. He has 2,022 points.
He's too slow. Give me Harvick.
Well, I'll tell you this, Matt. Kevin Harvick this year in 26 regular season races, he finished in the top 10 21 times, and he probably would have done 22 if he didn't get wrecked out of the race at Daytona Saturday night. He got 17 top 5s. He only finished out of the top 20 once this entire regular season. 25 top 20 finishes in 26 regular season races. So most people, there hasn't really been anyone that's been able to compete with him this year. Denny's kind of been there, but for the most part, Harvick's been on another level. I think the big story going into this first round, Kyle Busch, the defending champion right now, is below the cut line. He is 2 point. Now, granted, he's 2 points back to start, but he did not win a race all regular season. That team has not looked like they normally do. They have an average finish of 15.2, which is not up to par with where they should be and where they would like to be. So it'll be interesting to see if Kyle Busch can kind of go on a run here of these final 10 races, or if he's going to get eliminated early. That'll be something to watch. But enough about that. I know that not many people care about that, so we're going to go into golf before we get into our final two segments. BMW Championship, and
absolute electricity.
Yes, it was. It's if there's still people out there that say that golf, if Tiger's not in contention, is not exciting, you're wrong. Because
don't we know one of those people too?
Yes, he's actually he's a big Islanders fan.
No, I was referring to someone else. I was referring to the big Cowboys fan. Is he another one of those people or no?
He might be. I'm not gonna put that on him, but
well, we know the Islanders fan is though.
Today was
it's absolute,
as you said,
insanity.
Yeah, you said it. It was electric from the crazy putt that DJ hit there just to force the playoff, to the putt that Rahm hit to win. It was incredible. It's probably one of my favorite sports moments so far this year in 2020. It was incredible.
The degree of difficulty on both of those putts was insane, and to see that happen almost within 20 minutes of each other is even crazier. It's for the people who just don't watch golf. I guess it's when I get older in age. Obviously, I'm now 23. I guess I'm more inclined to sit on my couch on a Sunday afternoon and watch golf. But damn, was that exciting, man. It's Dustin Johnson's on a roll. Obviously, he's the world's best golfer right now, world number one. But even still, the ability that he has to just catch fire, and he caught fire at the right time, Ryan, the past couple of weeks. Obviously, I mentioned it to you last week. He kind of ran through it was the Northern Trust last week. He ran through the Northern Trust pretty easily and really put himself in a great situation. Obviously, he didn't win this week, but just to force a playoff like that putt was ridiculous. And it took like 5 minutes to set that shot up there, too. And then, obviously, the Rahm one not too long later, 66 feet. You got to watch golf. It's exhilarating, especially when this time of the year when everyone's kind of in the flow of the game a little bit. And that's why I think the Masters are going to be really good this year too. And obviously the U.S. Open and everything else, because it's going to kind of happen one after another because everything got postponed. So we're going to see this high quality of golf for really a 2-month stretch. So I'm really excited for it. This is the first year I think I've religiously followed golf. Not religiously, but consistently throughout the whole PGA Tour season. So happy to see it kind of culminate.
When we start creating video content, myself and Matt will we've talked about creating a video where we just go out onto the course and try to play around. So that'll be
I'm horrible.
I
am horrendous.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that. I'm excited for that. I think that'll be fun to just see us, shoot 10 over on the first hole and then try to go from there.
You're pretty good off the tee, though. I can't hit off a tee at all because I never got out of the baseball habit of slicing the ball. So I'm hitting it onto, Jacksonville Road if we're playing at Springfield in East Hampton or wherever it is. I'm just slicing the ball the whole time. So I can never get past that. But you get me with an iron or a putter, and I'll hold my own out there. But
we'll find out.
You could beat me off the tee.
We'll find out when we go onto the course.
We'll get Mr. Sabatino, and we'll get someone else to join. We'll get a nice little squad going out there.
So that was 3 sports that the first time that we've talked about: soccer, NASCAR, and golf. We'll probably talk about 2 more sports next Sunday that we haven't talked about before. We might talk about tennis. The Kentucky Derby is this upcoming Saturday, so we might have to just touch on that. a little bit.
What are the horse names in the Kentucky Derby this year?
Tis the Law will be trying to continue his quest for the Triple Crown.
All right, I'm gonna pick the funniest name, and that's gonna be my pick.
Oh boy!
Ready? You could introduce the next segment as I do this.
So we're done with our regular sports segments. Now we're going to get into our fun segments to end the show. As I said, we have fan favorites, Start, Bench, Cut, and Pops My Tarts. There's a good horse name. We should get a horse name of Pops My Tarts. That'll be what we do with the money that we earn from this. But Start, Bench, Cut this week. Once again, this was a topic suggested by Matt for this week's Start, Bench, Cut. He's kind of the expert with this each week. He just kind of throws something like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that. So this week for Start, Bench, Cut, we have beer, liquor, and wine. So
Give me King Guillermo. That's my pick. Sorry to cut you off. King Guillermo.
Okay.
Apparently he finished second at the Arkansas Derby. So I guess that means he's pretty good. So give me King Guillermo. Sorry, go ahead.
We'll see if Matt's prediction is correct next Sunday. So tune in. Resident horse racing expert Matt DeLuca. We'll see if his pick. Do you want to give me a superfecta?
Nah, I'm good. Wait, I don't even think he's hold on. Oh yeah, he's here. He's ranked 6th here. I'm gonna take King Guillermo. You know what?
Okay.
Yeah, I like him.
So we're into. Okay. Well, we'll see if you're right next Sunday. Start, Bench, Cut. Who went first last week? I should probably start keeping track of this. Okay, so I'll go first this time. I'm cutting wine. I'm starting with cut. I'm gonna cut wine. And the reason for that, I said this before we started recording, and I got lambasted for it. If I wanted grapes, right? If I wanted grapes, I could go to my local supermarket and get a bag of grapes, not too expensive. I would know. I worked in the produce department for a couple years, from July 2015 to July 2017. So I would know. You can get a good bag of grapes for cheap. And listen, I could just eat the grapes. If I really wanted the juice from the grapes, I could just smash the grapes.
That's like not even the same thing, though.
I don't need to drink wine for that reason. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't think that wine is very good. I think that I've tasted a couple of them before. I'm not a huge fan. It's just, I don't know. I'm not a big wine guy. And maybe that's one of the things where as I mature and get older, maybe I'll appreciate that glass of wine out on the deck at 6:15 p.m. on a Saturday evening. Maybe that's when I'll do that. But right now, I'm cutting it. It's an easy cut for me. I'm not going to think twice about it. I'm benching the liquor. Now, me and liquor have had an interesting
it's a fun story.
I've had an interesting history. With Fireball, I've been okay. With a couple of I would have been fine.
I'm not going to expose you. I'm going to let you, if you want to tell your experiences with
there's
it.
a couple bad things. I mean, bourbon I was fine with, but I had probably one too many, and this was Christmas Eve night a year ago in 2019, and that was not a fun Christmas morning for me personally at 1:00 in the morning. We're just going to leave it there. The other.
Did you watch the Sheraton Hawaii Bowl with that?
Yes,
though?
That's
your tradition.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, I was very glad that I could, while I was consuming too much bourbon and other alcohol. I think that was the problem too. I mixed the bourbon, and while I was drinking like those big cherry lime Ritas and then some IPAs, so that was probably part of the issue as well. I just had too many different alcohol things going at the same time, but yeah, so that was a life lesson for me, Christmas Day 2019, is to not do that again, because I felt like shit that entire day, and that's not how you want to feel on Christmas. Christmas is magical, and I did not feel very magical throughout the course of that day.
That Christmas probably set up 2020 there for
I should have realized that was foreshadowing what the next 8 months would be like. But the other liquor that I've had issues with in the past, some would say that I can't drink tequila. It's not me, but some would try to say that I can't drink it. listen, whatever. There was an instance where I may or may not have tried to take a small amount. I think I might have taken half of it out of the glass. I don't think I took the whole thing. And then immediately, as soon as I felt it go down my throat, just okay. If you don't like hearing this, maybe skip ahead.
No, here,
20
you know
seconds.
what? I'll make no here. I'll make a good analogy. It's like if you put Mentos into soda. That's what happened.
Immediately something was wrong. And the problem, there was a trash can right behind me. So if I'm here and this is where the little island is, I just took the shot. The trash can, my audio is going to be a little rough right here. The trash can's right over here. But me being I did a 4D chess kind of move here, being the genius that I am. I was like, now I'm going to run into the corner because I'm like, well, the sink's over there. So maybe I could just throw up in the sink where we had some dishes.
Yo, I would have been so mad at you if you threw up in the sink. It's like impossible.
Regardless, I didn't make it to the sink, so we didn't have to find out about that. Something happened in the corner right as people were being let into the house.
Yeah,
and,
that was it.
So that was. But
hey
listen,
guys, how's it going?
Listen, I spin zoned it by saying, "Hey, listen, you get that out of the way," because this was still. Keep in mind, this was about at 8:00 at night, so we really hadn't even gotten started yet. So I spin zoned it as, you know what, we're gonna get that out of the way early, so now I'm good for the rest of the night. And listen, nothing bad happened for the rest of the night. It was just that thing,
bounce back.
Yeah, so, but me and liquor have a complicated relationship, which is why I'm going to bench it, and then I'm going to start beer. Big beer guy. There's a lot of different options. You can go for your cheap beer and still have a good time, crack a cup of Crickle, just grab a 30 rack of the whatever cheap beer you like, and just crack a couple when you're watching a football game or whatever. That's totally fine. I'm going to sound like a dick saying this. I'm a big IPA guy. There's nothing better to me than just getting a really expensive 4-pack of IPA, like $17 for 4
I know it
cans.
because I had to pick up 2 of them for you.
Yeah,
I maxed out my credit card when I bought 2 of them for you.
They're not the cheapest, but I'm one of those guys that'll wear like the flannel and the skinny jeans and go out onto my deck and like a cool October afternoon, just crack one and just go to town on it. Really, I'm a big fan of that. So yeah, I'm starting beer and I'm not going to regret it.
All right, so mine is a bit different. I'm gonna cut liquor. Just don't drink it enough to really have an opinion on it. I really don't drink that much anymore either. I'm gonna bench beer. Initially I thought it was the way to go. It's all right, but after a while, it's just beer in my eyes. And Ryan, I told you my renaissance that I've become this chef connoisseur of sorts in quarantine, where I love cooking, and I've started wine pairing now. That's why I'm going to start wine, because it's a skill to wine pair and to cook. And I think I've not mastered both, but I'm getting more towards past the adequate stage and into the above average phase in both. So I'm going to start wine, especially a nice Italian meal, right? Let me set the stage for you, Ryan. I cook like a nice chicken parm, right? Make it fresh, have a nice Cabernet to go with it, put on some Sinatra. It's a great night, right?
It was a great night,
wine. Yeah, but and especially now, I've learned so many new things that I could cook. Put a nice glass of wine, put some jazz on. It's a great night. So,
all right.
Starting wine.
Listen, I respect that. Listen, some people,
mind you, wine and beer are like neck and neck, though. It's not like last week when I said the train was really high above the plane. It's a lot more neck and neck this week. Because I'm not an avid drinker that much. So everything's kind of close. So it's kind of like the stock market. You got to watch depending on how I'm feeling.
Sure.
What, you don't believe that I could cook now?
No, I do. Listen,
One time I burnt taco shells, okay?
Well,
one time.
There were other instances of stuff that happened.
No, it's because someone left the oil on the pan, and I didn't know there was oil on the pan, and I put the taco shells in, and they were like burnt to a crisp because someone didn't clean the pan.
Okay.
That's what happened.
Okay. But no, listen.
What was the other thing?
The,
Are you going to talk about the pizza thing? I didn't know we had a pizza cutter. Okay, it's not part of cooking. That's just me trying to cut the pizza.
some people,
That's the only.
and I commend you for this. They just pour a little glass of wine, then they cook the meal. Listen, that's a nice aesthetic. Listen, that's something that I can get behind. I mean, not me. I wouldn't do it personally, but I respect the people that can do that. Just you cook a very nice meal while you're doing that or whatever. So, listen, I respect that. The wine
Ryan,
pairing, that's a big skill too. That's huge.
You got your phone near you right now, Ryan?
Yes.
I'm going to send you something that I cooked not too long
Oh
ago.
boy.
And we're going to overlay this image over over the podcast, and that way people could judge. They could see if Matt has learned how to cook or not. But of course, the message is going to take a while to send, so just imagine we're looking at it right now. React as if you would say, oh, wow, Matt, and then eventually we're going to put it over. But yeah, so it's going your way.
Okay. Oh, there it is. You received a picture.
Yeah.
That's
How about that, Brian?
okay. Hold on, I got to put on my reading glasses here. Zoom into
It's
this
lamb,
picture.
risotto, little garnish on the side there.
So
How about
okay,
that?
so let me ask you this: You're on Hell's Kitchen, and you bring this to Gordon Ramsay himself. What
It's
is what is?
different.
Well, let me ask you: what would he say about it?
The plating was a little. You know what? The middle of the plating was nice. I could have been better around the edges. I'm a little sloppy. I think it looks fine. I don't know what the issue is.
I think it looks fine. I mean, that's it,
Yeah.
as people know. Well, some people might not know this. I have never had lamb before, but if I
It's
if
all
I
right.
did have lamb, that looks intriguing.
Yeah, I'm not the hugest fan of lamb. We could do start bench cut next week of proteins.
That's easy for me.
Yeah, lamb. It's a weird tasting meat. I'll only cook it once in a while. I like cooking it more than I like eating it. So there you go. That's my one example for you. Now we could do Pops My Tarts.
So,
if you
Pops
want.
My Tarts. This was
That's a cooking term for you.
This was a
Pops.
yes, yeah, I agree. This was a fan favorite segment last week, to the point where let me get this up here. I need to get up this text message that we received from our good friend who is a big fan of the New York Islanders, Glendon Nugers. He sent us a text when he had heard us talk about Pops My Tarts. So I need to kind of find it here.
Should I just talk about food some more while you find
Oh,
it?
here
Or
we
should I
go.
do Pops
So-
My Tarts? Okay, you got it.
This was sent to us last Tuesday from friend of the show, Glendon Egris. Pops My Tarts, fuck you guys, LMAO. So this is clearly a fan favorite topic. We decided to bring it back. We did potentially start a little podcast beef, some would say. I don't know what I did wrong in this. I don't think I did anything. But as soon as we posted the podcast episode, the video version, I received a text message that said, "Excuse me, sir, that pizza was one of the best pizzas I ever had, and we will go again. You can't judge it unless you have it." To which I replied, "Calling that thing a pizza is disrespectful to all the other actual pizzas in the world." So this is clearly a fun segment. And Matt, I had my long piece last week about the whatever the hell that was that we had on the screen. So what pops your tarts this week?
People who wear their mask underneath their nose.
Good one.
Like, who the hell do you think you are? You know, like you don't look around at all and see, like, if you're in a supermarket and everyone else has their mask above their nose, which is the whole point of wearing a mask, is so you don't breathe your sickness into the air for everyone else to get it. But some people barely even have it on their mouth either. People who incorrectly wear a mask just pop my tarts beyond belief, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because we're in like month number 6 of this fiasco. We still have people who are waving flags and saying, don't infringe on my rights to wear a mask. Like, get over yourself. Put the mask above your nose, put it on your face, and don't take it off until you go in your car or in your house. Okay? Like, it's just not that hard. Like, do you want to go back and watch your favorite sports team in their arena or stadium? I'm sure you do. Do you want to go see Taylor Swift in a concert or your favorite artist? I'm sure you do. Well, in that case, put the mask above your damn nose, people. It's just like every time I see someone like that, I will point and say, "You are an idiot," and that's if. And I'm sure all of us know improper mask wear, and there's no excuse. It's 6 months in. If it was like April, I'd say, okay, maybe people are still trying to. They don't watch the news a lot, or we have to demonstrate to adult people how to put a mask on, which is just crazy to me. In 2020, just wear a mask. Pops My Tarts. Put it above your nose, so that way, I don't have to be in my house for another 6 months because of you people. Okay, and all of us, you're holding all of us back because of this. So that's my rant. And the other Pops My Tarts is getting an eyelash in your eye. You ever find yourself just blinking like this, like a bunch of times? If you watch the video version, you just feel like there's like someone just stabbing your eye because there's an eyelash in there. It's the worst. And you got to get a tissue and like open it and like try and pick at it until you get it out. It's the worst thing in the world, other than people who don't know how to wear a mask properly. So getting an eyelash in your eye, and also idiots who don't know how to wear a mask properly. There you go.
I will say I was at the Freehold Mall the other day on Friday, and I did see one of these people that you mentioned wearing the mask like that. And of course, I don't know if other people would do this. I'm not going to go up and say, hey, listen, you got to put that thing above your nose there, Chief. But it's still, it pisses me off a lot. That common courtesy, just pull it up. All right?
And obviously, if you have a medical condition to where you can't wear a mask, we're not talking about you. Okay? Let's just be clear about that. We're talking about, and I don't want to use the Twitter term, Ryan, to generalize a certain group of people of Karens, has been a popular term, but people who just feel that they're above wearing a mask. They're above my health and everyone else's health, right? But they just think they are so important that they don't have to wear a mask, even though it protects all of us. I do it to protect you. I do it to protect anyone we know. And they do the same thing. It's called a social contract. I think that's what it's called. I don't really know. I'm trying to use my Monmouth education for something. But it's just a mess. You just wear a mask. Like, I see it in the supermarket. That's where it bothers me the most, because you're breathing on people's food. We don't know what you got. I get tested from time to time, but not everyone else knows. So, I have to. But, other people just don't do it, so you don't know it. You could be asymptomatic. You could be breathing on my apples. Just wear a mask, man. Unbelievable. And then people make it a political issue, too, but it's not. Just put the mask on. It's not that hard. The eyelash in the eye one, though, might be worse, to be honest with you. That's a horrible day when you got an eyelash in your eye, especially when you're driving. You got to pull over. You got to get it out.
All right. Well, that was a good segment there for Pops My Tarts for you. I agree. You made some very good points.
It's like a PSA.
Yeah, you should.
That was like one of those PSAs you put on Hawk TV, man, with the wear a mask from Dr. Anthony Fauci. Well, it's coming from Bachelor of Arts Matt DeLuca. Wear a mask.
Yeah, we should just make that a PSA, and just use any money we earn to get this on television stations, because I think people, if they just saw if they just saw your passionate plea to wear your mask correctly, I think that people would do it. So we'll look into doing that. So stay tuned for that.
Well, let me put it like this: if you want to see all of your family members and have a comfortable Christmas and not have to worry about getting sick, wear your mask now. That's what I got to say. That you're going to really help our cause when we get closer to the holidays, when we all want to see our families for Christmas or whatever you celebrate. So there you go. There's my speech.
Well, there you go.
Am I wrong?
You're not. No, you were 100% correct. No, you're good. I think we had to get that out there. We are a pro-mask podcast. We are coming out. It's definitely, we're pretty brave for doing it. This is something that we talked endlessly about. Should we come out as a pro-mask podcast, or should we kind of wait to see the facts? But we're going to come out as a pro-mask podcast, and I hope that everyone can respect us for that. So thank you for your service, Matt. I know that was very tough for you to take that side. but I hope everyone knows to wear a mask properly. So, for Pops My Tarts, I have a couple. Number one, it's kind of a personal thing. I haven't had a haircut since December. So this was
Wow.
I went to I was going to go to a holiday party in December, so I got a haircut shortly before that. I haven't gotten a haircut since. So the first thing that pops my tarts is when your hair kind of reaches that stage where you can kind of start to see the progress, but it's really annoying when it's long. So it just continues getting in your eyes and on your nose and over your glasses. So you have to keep either flipping your head back or you got to like it's a hassle. It's a real pain to have to when your hair gets to this point. So that's been an issue that I've been dealing with personally over the past few weeks, and I guess a little bit longer than that. Now I had long hair, kind of long hair, 8th grade, freshman year of high school. And then after my freshman year of high school, I said, "That's it. I'm done. I'm never doing this again." Because it's not only is it a pain to keep out of your eyes and your off your nose and stuff. It takes a while to clean long hair in the shower. And it takes a long time to dry it when you get out of the shower. So that's time that I'm never going to get back in my life, which is unfortunate. But I've committed to just letting it grow out longer than I've ever let it grow out before. I think when I was in 8th grade, freshman year of high school, it might have been kind of close to the bottom of my neck, but we're just growing it all out. We're letting it all go. We're going to try to get it to look like Bryce Harper. We might get it to look like Mike Clevenger. We're just going to let it grow out. Why not? But it's kind of at that stage where it's a pain to deal with. So that kind of pops my tarts. Mm-hmm. Another thing, people that disrespect the Tampa Bay Rays, especially if they do it in like a podcast, that pops my tarts a lot.
In a rival podcast of ours.
I'm a big Tampa Bay Rays guy, so the fact that people disrespect them, even the slightest bit, that pops my tarts. The third thing, this is kind of a personal thing for me. Madden 21, and we're probably not going to get sponsored by EA after I say this. Madden 21 was released, I guess maybe a week or so ago, maybe a little more. It's a mess. I think if you actually look at the reviews, so I'm actually going to, because I want to make sure I get this right. So if I search,
did you buy it? Or
no, I did not. No.
Okay. What was the last Madden game that you purchased?
The last Madden game that I purchased was 18. Now I had this thing, EA Origin. They did this thing where you can like pay a certain amount per month and then get access to games. So I did not buy Madden 19. I had just gotten like a little subscription to that service for a month, and that's all I needed. So if you look up Madden 21 on Google right now, the audience rating summary is 1.5 out of 5. There are 1,477 ratings. A vast majority of them are 1 star. If you go to Metacritic, the user score based on 1,493 ratings is 0.3 out of 10. It's the gameplay, unironically, is actually not too bad, but this is a franchise that when we were younger, and I say we, me and Matt, when we were younger, this was the thing that everybody always looked forward to. It was kind of bittersweet because when it came out, it meant that school was about to start in like a week. But this was the game that when it came out, everyone needed to have. Everyone played it with each other or even by yourself because there's so much to do if you just wanted to play the game on your own. And all that's gone. No, it doesn't seem like anybody at Electronic Arts who develops this title cares about a good portion of their player base anymore. They care about exploiting these young kids in Madden Ultimate Team by almost, I don't want to say force, but they entice them very heavily to purchase cards, virtual cards, for real money that are worthless in a year. And they get thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars each month through Madden Ultimate Team. And it's a shame because you can tell that's where their priorities lie. Like when we were younger, this was a really good franchise of not just sports games, but video games in general. Madden was towards the top. They cared about it. They improved it every single year. They did everything they could to make it the best that it could be. And keep in mind, this was when games were released and that's what you got. it wasn't where you get them and then you got to download them and then you got to download patches and updates. Whatever was on the disc, that's what you had. And they managed to put together a number of incredible games. You could kind of start to see it early in the early 2000s. 04 with Vic on the cover, that's when it really started to gain prominence. 05, a lot of people say that's the best, not only the best Madden of all time, some people say it's the best football game of all time. And there's some debate to that, but even 06, 07, 08, those were all very good. But Matt, it pops my tart to see a once proud video game franchise fall as much as this franchise has. It hurts because I loved playing Madden as a young kid. That's something I look forward to every single year. And now it's, I wish I could spend $60 a year on the newest Madden every year, but it's just, they don't care anymore. And I think that's what hurts. They don't care about the gamer like me.
Well, it's one of the reasons why I kind of switched over to Nintendo and stayed there, right? And kind of bridged the gap and not done sports games anymore, because I think most of them are just roster updates every year anyway. I think we're starting to reach the point where we can't get any better with some of these sports games, which isn't like, I just don't know how much more we can achieve in this next gen like PS5 nonsense and like, oh, look at the sweat coming off of Zion in this trailer. Like, I don't know how much more we can realistically get with a video game, especially with Madden, just because of all the moving parts that go with it. And it doesn't mean they can't stop trying, and I agree with you, that's kind of what it is. I mean, over the past couple years that I had it, to be honest, because I haven't had a PlayStation since 2018, so either that or before was the last Madden game that I've really sat and played for more than like an hour on a friend's console. And it's just not the same. You're right. I look forward to those games. I really like the ones when they put Jim Nantz and Phil Simms in there, and it kind of felt like an actual NFL game almost. And it just felt authentic. And I guess towards the later years of our high school days, and maybe like our first year in college, just when it kind of started just becoming this ultimate team stuff. And my roommate, shout out Hot Take Mike, he would do the Madden Ultimate Team stuff. I didn't really get it, and that's just kind of how it is with Madden. It's kind of frustrating, but it's just the same game every year. I mean, we look at the comments. If you go on Twitter and it's like, oh, here's the new gameplay trailer for Madden with Lamar Jackson, and it's like, you look at the comments and it's just same game, and everyone has the same opinion. So
have you seen the cover for the game this year?
Probably, but I don't remember it off the top of my head.
Okay, can you look at that just real quick? Because this is another point that I want to make. Being the cover athlete for a game like Madden that's what like everybody always wanted. That's what every athlete that's like, man, I would love to be on the cover of Madden. And it's because they were so cool. They were designed super well. It's something you'd be proud of. The one this year.
Did we just throw this in Photoshop?
Well,
man?
the one this year looks like if somebody pulled up like Microsoft Word and put some clip art photos together, and that's it. The cover is awful. I don't know who okayed that in the graphic design department at Electronic Arts, but that's bad. The cover that they made this year, and it's the same for all their ones too. UFC, NHL 21, all their sports games, they look exactly the same.
Well, the ones that they used to do were pretty cool.
They were.
Like the Gronk one was cool. The Richard Sherman one I thought was pretty cool. Like, they would have design in the background. You go back even farther, it's like that. It just looks like something I can make in like InDesign or like even Word. You're right. Yeah, it is bad.
So this is my plea to anybody listening at whether it's
and it's just everything's like a similar color too. Like this main picture, the light blue sky with the white that they have kind of going around all these other pictures. It's just hard for my eyes to focus on something. I could barely read the Madden 21 that's in the middle. There's no like outline of it, so it kind of just blends in. Am I looking at the right one, Ryan?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. That's a fair question to ask if that's actually the cover. Yeah, that's a good question.
I can't I can barely read the I mean, my eyes suck as it is, but like. Yeah,
so this is the final thing for Pops My Tarts. This is my plea. The NFL just re-upped their simulation contract with EA Sports for, I think, another 5 or 6 years. This is not a simulation football game anymore. It's something that you could maybe have fun with if you're in the right demographic, but this is not simulation football.
This is party. This is a party game, is what this is.
This is not the Madden that I know, and this is just my plea to please somebody save it and get it back to the way it was. But Matt, we have been recording for 2 hours, it's a good thing that we started at 10. We had just started recording at this time last week, and if we had went 2 hours tonight, starting at 12 a.m., I can't imagine that would have been fun. But this was a good episode. We have a lot of fun content coming up on the site starting this week and going into next week with the NFL season coming up. We have 8 different writers on our staff that will be previewing a division. That starts on, Wednesday. That starts on Wednesday. Let me make sure. It starts on Wednesday.
Right, Wednesday.
Ross Anderson will be previewing the AFC East, and then each day we'll be previewing a new division going up until the 9th when my preview for the NFC West will go live. And then on the 10th, we will have full staff predictions. We have a group of 15 or 16 members of our staff that will have filled out a survey, and we will get their staff predictions out. That way you guys can see which way the best available player staff is leaning for the NFL this year. We'll have division winners, wild card winners, the conference winners, Super Bowl winners, award winners, surprising and disappointing teams, everything that you'll want to see for the upcoming NFL season. We'll have it. That'll be live on September 10th. We have some more fun podcasts coming out. I think Entry Level Experience is set to record their first episode here pretty soon. The Halper Bros have a chock full of fantasy football episode coming up, and that's a great listen. 2 hours of all the information you'll need to win your draft, so be sure to check that out as well. Forward Progress, they'll have an episode coming out soon as well. Jabberjays with the VMAs that were tonight, you definitely don't want to miss that. I'm sure that'll be a heavy topic of discussion in their next episode. A lot of great writing content coming up, not even just for the NFL, but we have some great entertainment pieces, everything. So we got a lot of great stuff coming up over at the site, bestavailableplayer.com. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at bestavailplayer and Instagram, bestableplayer. We're finally posting on Instagram now, which is cool. We took like a week to kind of determine what we wanted to do, and now we are posting on Instagram pretty regularly. So toss us a follow there. It would truly mean the world. And Matt, do you have anything you want to say?
Wear a mask, everybody.
Wear a mask.
And cherish your loved ones, because there's a crazy world you live in. So just make sure you're always nice to people. You never know what people are going through. My nice heavy topics to end the show. And go Bruins. There you go.
This has been Best Available Podcast, Episode 3. We'll see you guys next week.